A world from 2,000 years ago, an era marked in blood within the pages of history. On the soil of modern-day Turkey, the city of Ephesus stood at the peak of Roman glory. This city was the eastern gateway to the Roman Empire, a power that made the world tremble. It was a place of marble palaces and amphitheaters echoing with the roar of thousands. But behind that grandeur, a dark shadow of fear lay hidden. Every stone and every wall had a terrifying story to tell. Back then, the land was ruled by Emperor Decius. More than just a man, he was a cruel ruler who declared himself a god. In his empire, there was no peace, only slavery and terror. His favorite pastime was brutally executing anyone who refused to worship the idols he commanded. In the city squares, seeing innocent people thrown to lions or burned alive was a daily occurrence. The rule of Decius was enough to make the human conscience shudder. In this dark era, the light of truth began to shine within a few young men who were high-ranking officials and noblemen in the palace. They weren't just commoners, they were the king's confidants, enjoying every luxury the palace had to offer. Yet none of this outward grandeur could chain their hearts. Even as they attended royal banquets and sipped wine from golden cups, one question remained within them. Is there not a power above these stones and idols that controls the entire universe? That secret couldn't stay hidden for long. The eyes of spies were constantly following them. The emperor soon noticed their withdrawal from idol worship. Breaking all royal protocols, they were dragged before the throne. Standing before the emperor without bowing their heads, they said in steady voices, "Our God is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. We will worship none but him." Those words shook the very walls of the palace. Even though death was certain, they stood firm in their truth. The emperor gave them a little time to think. It was a test. Either renounce their faith or face the most brutal death. That night, they made their choice. Leaving behind all their royal titles and comforts, they crossed the city borders in the silence of midnight. That journey toward a new dawn was the first step into one of the greatest mysteries in world history. Along with them was a loyal guardian, the dog we know in history as Kit Mir. As those young men crossed the borders of Ephesus, there was a determination within them greater than any fear. They knew the short time Emperor Decius had given them was a trap. Certain that soldiers would pursue them at any moment, they abandoned the main roads. On foot, under the cover of darkness, they stepped into the mountains. For these noblemen who had slept on silk beds in the palace, this path full of stones and thorns was incredibly difficult. With every step, their breath grew heavy, and the distant sounds of guards behind them made them even more alert. In the silence of the night, the roar of wild animals frightened them far less than the emperor's cruelty. During that journey, they met a companion, a shepherd from the outskirts of the city, and his loyal dog. The shepherd's simple life and his unwavering faith in God brought them great comfort. After hearing their story, the shepherd decided to join them. Ready to sacrifice everything for the truth, the group continued their journey toward the Insilu mountains of modern-day Turkey. Their dog, Kit Mir, followed them like a shadow. After crossing steep mountain climbs and valleys thick with trees, they arrived at the mouth of a vast cave. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary cave, but within its depths, a great miracle awaited them. The meager food and water they carried were nearly gone. Though exhausted by hunger and thirst, their lips held only prayers. "Our Lord, grant us mercy from yourself and dispose of our affair for us in the right way." This prayer echoed through the walls of the cave. When they reached the mouth of that cave, they felt as if they had entered a completely new world. Away from the city's chaos and the king's spies, they finally felt safe. While the thunder of soldiers' horses echoed outside, A divine peace enveloped them within. They ventured deeper into the cave. Exhausted, the group decided to rest there for a while. But that rest wasn't just for a few hours. It was the beginning of a great miracle that would last for centuries and shake the world. Their loyal dog sat at the entrance, keeping watch as a witness to that very moment. In the cool darkness of the cave, a divine tranquility descended upon the weary young men. Far from the shouts of the pursuing soldiers, and without the weight of fear, they drifted into a deep slumber. It wasn't an ordinary sleep. Rather, it was a grand miracle where the boundaries of time vanished under the special care of the Lord of the universe. Their heartbeats slowed, and their breathing became as faint as a light breeze. All the laws of the outside world stood still at the entrance of that cave. The greatest miracle in this mysterious slumber was how nature itself became their guardian. To ensure the sunlight never hit their bodies directly, the sun changed its path, rising past the right side of the cave and setting past the left. This divine arrangement protected their skin from being damaged by direct rays, while perfectly maintaining the airflow and temperature inside. It was as if the Lord of the universe had prepared a natural incubator within that cave to keep them safe for the centuries to come. To prevent their bodies from decaying into the earth, invisible hands turned them over to the left and right sides from time to time. Scientifically speaking, lying in one position for so long should cause the body to wither, but here the laws of nature stepped aside for them. To an outsider, it might have looked as if they were wide awake, but in reality, they were on a profound spiritual journey. As the Quran describes this scene, if you had looked at them, you would have turned and fled in terror. In that miraculous silence, their loyal dog remained right there with the young men. Hidden from the eyes of the outside world and sheltered by the cave, he too became part of that divine slumber. For over 300 years, as empires crumbled and new cities rose outside, these young men and their dog remained unchanged. They stayed safe within the heart of that cave, a mystery that history could not touch and time could not destroy. Years turned to decades, and decades to centuries. For the strength of faith held by these 6 young men, over 300 years passed like a single moment. Outside, generations went and came. The king and the army that once hunted them turned to dust. Yet inside the cave, the light of truth remained unextinguished. The Lord of the universe preserved them to become a great sign for the world to come. It wasn't just a sleep, but a grand bridge toward the truth that there is indeed another life after death.
Time continued its relentless march. Outside the cave, empires crumbled and new dynasties rose to power. Generations came and went. Finally, after more than 300 years, a movement occurred within that mysterious cave. By the command of the Lord of the universe, the young men slowly opened their eyes. They looked at each other as if waking from a long afternoon nap. They were stunned to see that neither their bodies nor their clothes had changed at all. They believed they had slept for only a day, or perhaps half a day. They had no idea about the massive changes in the world outside, or that centuries had passed them by. They wondered if this was still the same old world they had hidden from. Driven by intense hunger, they decided to send one of their own into the city with the coins they had to buy some food. Tamlika, one of the youths, was chosen and sent out cautiously. Fearing that Emperor Decius's soldiers might still be hunting them, he stepped into the light of the cave in disguise. Their loyal dog remained there, watching their every move. In Tamlika's mind, the fear of being discovered still loomed large. But the sights outside the cave left him completely stunned. These weren't the old paths they once knew. Even nature seemed to have changed. The flow of the rivers and the thickness of the woods felt unfamiliar. When he reached the city limits, the buildings he saw, the way people dressed, and the way they spoke were entirely new to him. Instead of the cruel faces of Roman soldiers, he saw people behaving with peace and kindness. For a moment, he wondered if he had stepped into another world altogether. Most surprisingly, instead of the idols and symbols of the cruel emperor he feared, he saw signs of monotheism at the city gates and in front of houses. The brutal oppression had ended. In its place was a government that echoed justice and mercy. With trembling hands, Tamlika reached a small eatery and held out a coin for food. The shopkeeper was shocked. It was a gold coin bearing the seal of an emperor who had turned to dust centuries ago, a face seen only in history books. The city folk saw him as a stranger who had stumbled upon a hidden treasure. People gathered around him, unable to believe the things he was saying. Finally, when the truth came to light, the entire city was shaken to its core. The Abelian believers they had only heard of in ancient tales were now standing alive right before them. It wasn't just an awakening from sleep, it was a living sign of the ultimate truth, that humans will be resurrected after death. The new king and the people of the city flocked to the cave to witness this miracle. That ancient coin in Tamlika's hand sparked a massive revolution in the city. The news spread like wildfire. Princes and officials from an empire that turned to dust centuries ago had returned alive. This news reached the ears of the current ruler. He wasn't a tyrant like Decius. Instead, he was a God-fearing and just king. However, during that era, a great debate divided the people. Would humans be physically resurrected after death, or would only the soul remain? Just as the believers were struggling for an answer, the awakening of the Ashabul Kahf happened. The king, his soldiers, and the townspeople set out towards the mountains along with Tamlika. Thousands gathered to witness the moment where history was coming back to life. When they reached the mouth of the cave, Tamlika told them, "Please wait here. Let me go in first and speak with my companions. If they suddenly see a massive crowd, they will be terrified, thinking the emperor's soldiers have come to capture them." Tamlika entered the cave and described the wonders he had seen and how the world had changed. Instead of fear, a divine peace filled their hearts. Inside the cave, the king and the young men finally met. It was an unbelievable sight. The current king stood humbled before these youths who wore the clothes and spoke the language of centuries past. They embraced each other and offered praises to God. For those who believed that bodies would simply decay after death and resurrection was impossible, these young men who lived for over 300 years without any change became a living proof. Their presence made the faith of the land even stronger. The words of those young men brought the king and the people to tears. This long slumber and their eventual awakening was the greatest reward from God for those who were willing to sacrifice everything for the truth. They spoke to the people about the fleeting nature of this world and the eternal truth of the hereafter. They realized that their mission was now complete. They understood that God had awakened them specifically to serve as a sign of resurrection for generations to come. That spiritual dialogue within the cave became one of the greatest lessons in history. Finally, the young men returned to the depths of the cave to rest once more. The king and the people waited outside, but this time they did not sleep to wake again. Having successfully completed their mission, those souls entered into eternal rest. The miracle of the Lord of the universe was fulfilled there. At the mouth of the cave, the king ordered a place of worship to be built in their memory. The history of the Ashabul Kahf does not end there.
Rather, it remains a message of great hope and certainty for believers until the end of time. The history of the Ashabul Kahf is not merely a matter of faith. It is a truth that continues to amaze us through signs that remain on earth to this day. Beyond Islamic belief, this miracle is deeply recorded in Christian tradition as the Seven Sleepers of Ephesus. Historians, including the 6th century Saint Gregory of Tours, describe in detail the story of these 7 holy youths who sought refuge in a cave to escape the persecutions of the Roman Emperor Decius. For centuries, the Christian world has honored these young men and built churches in their memory. While several places around the world claim to house this cave, the ones in Ephesus, Turkey, and Amman, Jordan, are the most significant. Excavations inside the cave at Mount Panayır in Turkey uncovered numerous Byzantine-era tombs and hundreds of ancient Roman coins. Much like the old coin Tonlika offered in the city, a vast collection marking that era of history exists here. Revered in both Christian and Muslim traditions, these caves remain beloved pilgrimage sites for believers and travelers alike, even today.
Another compelling piece of evidence is the Al-Rakim cave, located about 10 kilometers from Amman, Jordan. Studies conducted there in 1963 uncovered 7 stone tombs and skeletal remains remarkably similar to those of a dog. The airflow and the alignment of sunlight within the cave align astonishingly well with the descriptions in the Quran. Even today, signs carved in ancient scripts can be seen there. These findings continue to draw history enthusiasts from around the world, reminding us that some wonders still exist beyond our physical laws. This magnificent history of the Ashabul Kahf offers us a profound spiritual lesson. These young men, who were willing to sacrifice every luxury and status for the sake of truth, show us that spiritual certainty is far greater than any worldly gain. Their safety within a dark cave for over 300 years was a testament to the special mercy of the Lord of the universe. They stand as a living sign that for those who place their complete trust in God, tawakkul, during all hardships, even the laws of nature will step aside. Even their loyal dog became a part of that divine silence and shared in that great miracle. Their awakening was a great bridge to the truth that humans will be physically resurrected after death. Centuries later, they opened their eyes to provide clear evidence of the afterlife for generations to come. Just as the Ashabul Kahf served as a sign for the people of that era, it remains a profound message for us living in today's modern world. No matter how much knowledge and technology advance, this history reminds us that man remains humble before the miracles of God. The greatest truth here is that for those with the light of faith in their hearts, even dark caves become sanctuaries like heaven. That miracle from centuries ago continues to shine as an unextinguished light of hope in our minds. What thoughts did this amazing history spark in you? Please share your opinions in the comment box below. To continue our journey seeking such historical mysteries and ancient truths, subscribe to this channel now. Please share this video to bring this knowledge to your loved ones as well. Until we meet again on another journey through history. Thank you.